Xiaomi Redmi Note 5 Pro hands-on review. The Redmi Note 5 Pro is Xiaomi's latest smartphone, just recently introduced to the Indian market alongside the cheaper Redmi Note 5. While the company does sell more expensive models, the Redmi Note series has always been its best-selling and most important range. As you can see, Xiaomi is clearly not messing around this year. The jump to a Snapdragon 636 alone puts it in a different league compared to its competition. It has also been paired with LPDDR4X memory, which is only seen in high-end devices. Lastly, the phone also has one of the best cameras Xiaomi has shipped on a phone. Design. The Redmi Note 5 Pro is markedly different in appearance from its predecessor, with a completely different body. On the front is the new taller 18:9 display with curved corners. The bezels around the display aren't the thinnest around, but they are definitely thinner than its predecessor. Also, it's worth pointing out that this is a big and heavy phone. This phone is noticeably taller than its predecessor, so those with smaller hands are going to have an even harder time reaching the top of the screen. The weight has also gone up significantly, and there is a considerable heft to this phone that might deter some buyers. Display. The Redmi Note 5 Pro has a 5.99-inch, 2160 by 1080 IPS LCD with an 18:9 aspect ratio. The display has multiple settings to adjust the color, contrast and temperature. By default, it is set to automatic mode, which automatically adjusts the contrast to ambient lighting. The increased contrast mode locks it down to a high contrast and saturation setting with a cool color temperature. Or you can set it to the standard mode, which has more normalized color, contrast and color temperature closer to sRGB values but not precisely so. If you want color accuracy, this is the mode to use, which is what we did on our unit. Software. The Redmi Note 5 Pro ships with Android 7.1.1 underneath MIUI 9. Our non-retail review unit came with 9.2.2.0 nightly build, which we hope and assume isn't too different from the version that will ship with retail units later this week. As is the case with MIUI devices, the software on the Redmi Note 5 Pro is more or less identical to what you get on other Xiaomi devices running MIUI 9. The differences are usually hardware-specific and can be seen in things like the camera app, which we will talk about later, but, by and large, the experience is similar. Basically, if you have used one MIUI 9 device, you have used them all. Bottom line is, Xiaomi has done some good work to make MIUI more relevant and functional to its users. However, it is all built upon a somewhat outdated user interface that needs to be brought in line with Google's UI design guidelines, not Apple's. Performance. The Redmi Note 5 Pro is the first smartphone to have Qualcomm's newest Snapdragon 636 processor. While the 600 series has largely been rather here nor there, things are now starting to look up a little. The reason for that is the inclusion of the semi-custom Cryo 260 CPU, which is a combination of 4X Cortex-A73 and 4X Cortex-A53 CPU cores from ARM. It's the A73 part that really excites us, as that is exactly what's found inside the more powerful Cryo 280 on the Snapdragon 835. Graphics performance has also seen a small improvement over its predecessor. It's not quite the same leap we saw over on the CPU side, but the GPU is now powerful enough to play almost every game you throw at it perfectly fine. The device also maintains its temperature quite well during gaming, and we didn't notice any undue heating. Connectivity. Our review unit had no issues with call quality and network performance, and both worked admirably. Both the earpiece and the loudspeaker are perfectly clear for calls, and the loudspeaker is loud enough for ringtones but doesn't sound especially good for music. It's good to see the Redmi series step up to Wi-Fi 802.11 acres and Bluetooth 5.0, even though this is exclusive to just this particular model for now. IR continues to be part of these devices, and the Mi Remote app works great with a bunch of devices. The phone also has a headphone jack as well as an FM radio. One major bummer is the continued presence of microSD, which really should have no place in the year 2018. Another issue is the continued use of hybrid SIM slot, which means you can't use two SIM cards if you choose to have a microSD card or vice versa. The 64GB storage on the Pro takes some edge out of this, but still, we would like to see dedicated dual SIM and microSD slots as we see on some of the competition. Camera. The Redmi Note 5 Pro has a dual camera system on the back, with a 12MP primary sensor and a 5MP secondary depth sensor. This is the first Redmi Note device to have a dual camera system on the back. On the front is a single 20MP camera with an LED flash. The camera application is similar to other MIUI 9 devices but has been updated to include the option for portrait mode. All the options are laid out at the bottom similar to the iOS camera app. Xiaomi is also one of the few companies to get HDR processing right. Enabling HDR pulls details out of both shadows as well as highlights, unlike most other devices that only prioritize the shadows. We were impressed at the level of detail the HDR mode was able to pull out of some images. Battery life. Within our brief testing, the battery life on the Redmi Note 5 Pro was just as impressive as we expected it to be. We consistently got around 8 hours of screen on time with one full day of usage. Less demanding users will be able to make the phone last for 2 days, but even if you wring the life out of it, you can still expect it to last you an entire day with ease.